Hello everybody, I'm Kamaleao, welcome to my channel. I didn't have much time in the past few days, but new cards got revealed in Hearthstone, so I just had to take a look at them. And these are my first impressions and ideas around them. So let's get right into it, Branching Paths. Now, 4 mana card for Druid, choose twice, draw a card, give your minions +1 attack, gain 6 armor. That is, well, the effects itself, drawing 2 cards for 4 mana, that is a little bit overpriced. Drawing 2 cards for 1 card is generally a 3-card card. For 4, that's a bit much. Give your minions +1 attack, or +2. Well, that really depends on whether you can develop a board with enough minions where that becomes relevant. I mean, 4 mana, give your minions a total of +14 attack. That is pretty good. Can you get that kind of a board? I think as a druid, well, token druid can develop big boards with lots of stuff. And Spreading Plague can give you lots of stuff. And you can play Branching Paths and Spreading Plague on the same turn. So that is potentially useful. And gain 6 armor, gaining 12 armor for 4 seems like a good deal, seeing how much armor is generally worth, or how much you usually have to pay for it. But then again, Druid can do less with armor than Warrior. But it's not useless. I mean, if you consider it as heal for 12, or it's, I think, better than heal for 12. And healing for 8 costs 3 mana in Druid, so gaining 8 armor costs 3, but has the added possibility of taking the attack power. So yeah, it's a mixed bag. Generally, I think this card is potentially okay to good. The only problem that I see with is you pay more for the variability. But generally, decks in Hearthstone don't really want variability. Generally, when you have a deck, you want one clear path to victory. And Branching Paths is not that. So I think if this sees play, it'll see mainly play because of the give your minions +2 attack. And maybe there will be a deck that can leverage that. And the other 2 options will be, well, options. But I think this card is potentially playable. This one is old. Cheat Death. So Rogue gets secrets. It's a 2 mana secrets, and when a friendly minion dies, return it to your hand. It costs 2 less. Now this just screams Getaway Kodo. It's a Getaway Kodo that costs more, but it has kind of a Shadow Step rolled into it as well. How good is that? Well, having friendly minion die and return to your hand, that is generally very good with strong death rattles. Or in Rogue, it's useful because it costs less, and that enables you to have more combo starters or more cards you can play with your Van Cleef. So that is potentially quite useful. Another advantage is that as Rogue, it's probably easier to play a deck where you have less completely useless little stuff, like you don't have 1/1s necessarily. Now, one of the big problems with secrets is that the power of a secret is pretty much reliant on other secrets also being good. Because if there's only one secret you play, then everybody knows what it is, and it's not really a secret. Sure, if you can taunt your stuff up with Bone Mare, or if it's just that much of a threat that your opponent can't ignore it, then Cheat Death is good as well, even if it's the only secret you play. But the secret part becomes better when there are more secrets that are playable, and more secrets that are frequently run, because then it becomes more difficult for your opponent because he has to check for multiple secrets. Essentially, the question is are the other secrets good enough? And we don't know the third secret yet. It's going to be 3 as far as I know. But yeah, I think it's possible to build the deck around this, where this is a useful card. Getaway Kodo sees some play. I don't think that this is game winning in any way, but it's potentially a playable card. We had these three, then the Duskbreaker. It's a Priest Dragon, which is something I like a lot because Dragon Priest used to be one of my favorite decks, and I think it needs some love. 4 mana, 3/3, Battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage to all other minions. This is a very, very good card, I think, or a very useful card if Dragon Priest becomes strong enough. I think then they will run this. The stats on their own are really bad, so you definitely need the Battlecry. But 3 damage on turn 4, that is usually enough to wipe all or most of the stuff that flood decks have thrown out up until that point. And it kind of bridges the gap. I mean, as a Dragon Priest, sure, you can play Organized Circle, but that's 2 cards, and it's a bit more clunky because of that. And you end up with a 3/1 on the board. This way, you end up with a 3/3 on the board, and you only need 1 card and a dragon of some description in your hand. So I think this is a better way to get rid of early aggression or early to mid aggression than Organized Circle for Dragon Priest. It's 1 less damage, but you only need 1 card. So I'm excited for this card. I hope there's going to be more love. Feral Gibberer. 1 mana, 1/1. After this minion attacks a hero, add a copy of it to your hand. Now, 1 mana, 1/1 is incredibly bad. It needs to do something really good in order to be good enough. And what it does is, conditionally, it puts another very bad card into your hand. I don't really see this being useful. I mean, sure, if you have this on turn 1 and you play it on turn 1, your opponent doesn't immediately kill it, and you start running it into your opponent's face and you get more of them. That sounds nice. As rogue, you can use them as activators for combo and stuff like that, but still, it's just... If you get it anyway later than turn 1, you're going to hate yourself for drawing this card, because then you didn't draw a card that is actually good. And even if you get the combo started with this and get maybe 2 or 3 of them, they're still just 1 mana, 1/1s. So, quite a bad card, I think. The next new one is Katharina Winterwisp. 8 mana, 6/6 legendary for Hunter. Battlecry and Death Rattle. Recruit a beast. Now, immediately that makes you think, oh yeah, with the Battlecry it gets me my Savannah Highmane, and with the Death Rattle it gives me a Savannah Highmane or something like that. And if that happens, then it's pretty strong, yes. But to ensure that, you essentially have to only play beasts in your deck that are good enough so that Katharina can summon them, or recruit them. The problem with that is, pretty much all of the good early game minions that Hunter wants to play are beasts. But if Katharina pulls out your 1-drop, 2-drop, 3-drop beasts, then that is really, really, really bad. That is quite terrible for an 8 mana card, 6/6, and then it pulls out your 1/1. And then it pulls out maybe your 4/3 Bear Shark. That's terrible. That'll lose you games. On the other hand, if you don't play any early game beasts, that would weaken your deck considerably, I think, as a hunter. And then the question becomes, how many big beasts can you put into your deck so that Katharina reliably has enough targets to hit, because you might draw her after you draw some of your other beasts that you actually wanted to pull out, but still not so many that your your curve becomes too top heavy. So I think this is really tricky to build a deck around. And is the effect really worth it? I mean, are you going to survive that far into the game, into turn 8, if you gimp yourself by not putting low-level beasts or low mana cost beasts into your deck? I think this is going to be not a really useful card so far. And also, it's an 8 mana card that doesn't immediately help you with killing your opponent's face. And it's Hunter. And at that point, you want the face. So, yeah. Had that one. Lesser Mithril Spellstone. 7 mana warrior card, summon 1/5/5 Mithril Golem, equip a weapon to upgrade. Now, this is really sad because I really like the upgrade mechanic, but except for the Lesser Jasper Spellstone and in very, very, very fringe scenarios, the Sapphire Spellstone, they seem to be, I mean, Sapphire Spellstone is generally, I think, bad. Lesser Mithril Spellstone is very bad, I think. Because playing it on turn 7, 7 mana, 5/5, that is insanely bad. You never want to do that. 7 mana, 2 5/5s, that is better. But for 6 mana, you get 2 4/5s in a row, essentially, with Cairn. And without having to do anything before that, it comes out earlier. And, well, of course, as a Death Rattle minion, it is more risky against Polymorph, but Polymorph isn't really that common. It's a little bit more risky against Silence. But on the other hand, it's far safer against AoE. And even if you pull out 3 Mithril Golems, they just die to, well, a lot of AoE. Very quickly, very easily. And the next problem is you have to keep this in your hand to upgrade it. Now, as a warrior, in the late game, you don't really want to equip a lot of weapons. Your weapons as warrior are your early game tools, early to mid game. And you don't want this in your hand in the early to mid game. But that's where you want to play all your weapons. So that just, there's a disconnect there that just doesn't fit to me. And I don't really see how to make it fit. And even if, and that's a big if, I think, it's insanely bad if it doesn't work out and you have to summon 1/5/5 for 7 mana. And even if you get it to the greater Spellstone level where it summons 3 of them, it's still not great. So, no. Level up! Now, Paladin card, 5 mana, give your Silverhand recruits +2/+2 and taunt. Now, if we still, or let's, in Wild we still have that, if you have access to all the Silverhand recruit cards, like Call to Arms and, all the stuff that summons a lot of Silverhand recruits and buffs them, that might actually be interesting. So for Wild, I think this is an interesting card. It's not great because it's somewhat expensive, but it's potentially interesting at least. In Standard, I think it's quite bad because you would have to hit several of your Silverhand recruits. It's debatable how many you have to hit for this to become useful. But yeah, it's a number. And it's quite hard to get them to stick. And I don't have that many possibilities to get multiple of them out quickly. So I'm not convinced by this. Rummaging Kobold. Battlecry, return one of your destroyed weapons to your hand. That's a 3 mana 1/3. Now, this is, I think, mainly interesting for stuff like the legendary weapons, or if you only have 1 or 2 weapons in your deck and you can be certain to return a powerful weapon to your hand and not one of your basic standard weapons. In that case, if there is some kind of combo thingy, trick deck, then yeah, I think this is potentially good. I can't really see one deck where you have one single weapon because so far there isn't really not really a weapon that you definitely need twice. But if that happens, then I think this card is usable in that scenario. Curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. 2 mana secret. When a minion attacks your hero, instead it attacks one of its neighbors. So this is kind of a misdirection-ish like secret, only it's more targeted. The problem with this is, I mean, misdirection is already very bad, and this one, I mean, it attacks one of its neighbors. In a lot of board states, that means that your opponent has a lot of ways to deal with this. I mean, we are playing mainly in... we have a lot of decks where there are either not that many minions on the board, or flood decks with lots of little minions. And if you have a mix of that, if you have little minions and big minions, you can just play a little minion so that it's on that you have a minion on the edge, so it only has one other minion it can attack if there is sudden betrayal, and then it'll hit that one, and it's not going to be that bad. So I'm not convinced by sudden betrayal. I mean, misdirection sees pretty much no play, and yeah, it's very meh, I think. Which is sad, because you need good secrets for the other secrets to be good. The Rune Spear. 8 mana, 3/3. After your hero attacks, discover a spell and cast it with random targets. This is amazingly bad, I think. 8 mana for a 3/3 weapon is terrible. At that point in the game, 3/3 stats on a weapon is abysmal. I mean, this is more expensive. This is more expensive than 7/1 and degrades its attack. And this is only a 3/3. You're not really going to kill anything with this at that stage. And as a druid, not as a druid, as a shaman, you're not that durable that you can punch too many things in the face anyway. So the mechanic would have to be insanely good. And discover a spell and cast it with random targets is very bad, I think. If you look over the spells that Shaman has to offer, there are some spells which are always going to be good. Mainly the spells that have no target, like summon 2/3s with taunt. There's no target, that always happens on your side. Or Lightning Storm. That has no target, always happens on your opponent's board. So there are a number of safe bets there to discover. But there are also some which are really terrible. If you give your opponent's minions a buff, or if you put a direct damage spell in your own face or on your own minions, that would be terrible. And there's just too much variation here and too much volatility, and I think this is a very bad card. Now, you might think, hey, but there was that one old god that essentially did the same, only this time you have a discover, so you have more control over it. Yes and no. I mean, you have more control over it, but the reason why the old god was so good was because it created a ton of spells at one moment. So there was a lot of tempo there. This is only one spell. So even if it's a spell that is good for you, it's not going to be a super huge tempo swing most of the time, unless you're very lucky. And it's only 3 spells in total over the course of 3 turns. And that is just bad. I mean, the old god was good because it was like 10 spells that happened all at the same time. That was tempo. That was just a big, huge potential swing. Even if it was a very volatile swing, it was a swing. This one isn't. I think this is just bad. And then we have the last, for now, the Twig of the World tree, 4 mana, 1/5, Death Rattle, gain 10 mana crystals for Druid. Now, Oh, this is problematic and potentially really terrible. I mean, 4 mana 1/5, if you want to go through that with only attacking, then it basically doesn't help you at all unless you cheat it out early with coin and stuff. But even then, is that worth it? I think not. Sure, it's useful to have because it essentially makes your hero power for 5 turns. It turns your hero power into gain 2 attack, which is a significant difference. But unless you had the option to destroy your own weapon, this is not really that great. And even if, do you really need more ramp potential as a druid? I mean, this is not something you can rely on because it's only one card. Even if you had a reliable way of destroying it right away, this is only one card. So you cannot build a ramp deck with only this as your ramp. And if you have to put in all the other ramp cards, then this becomes either this or all your other ramp cards become more or less useless. So, not convinced by this one. So yeah, all in all, curse your sudden but inevitable betrayal. That is important. I am not really convinced by the legendary weapons. If you look over the ones that have been shown so far, they are generally mediocre on problematic to quite bad. And the new weapons they have released don't really help with that. The upgrade mechanic with your spells is, I think they're being too careful with this and making the cards, I think they might be afraid that they could create cards that are too good with this mechanic and then everybody has to run them and build their decks around them. But the two problems I have with that is if you make a new mechanic, people want to play that mechanic. But if you make the cards bad, then nobody can play the mechanic. Or you would just lose if you play it. And that is also quite bad. And, I mean, Blizzard doesn't really seem to have a problem with this card is insane, you have to play it. Otherwise, they wouldn't have released the Death Knights. Yeah. Of the newly released cards, I am personally most happy about Duskbreaker. Because I really like dragons, I like Dragon Priest, and I hope Dragon Priest really comes back as a generally playable deck. That would make me happy. So, yeah. That's it for the cards so far. I'm Kaleo. Have a good time.